Sorry, I normally try to shy away from the bottle of water, but the antibiotics and stuff this week have me. I'm drinking a gallon of water a day and I can't keep up. And so if I don't keep it with me, I will never make it through this morning. There's your title. And that's all I sent Mike the other day when he asked me, and I got crickets back from him. And I finally, after a day, I was like, nothing? And he realized that the text he sent me back never went out. And I was like, oh, okay, so you're just completely stunned. And so he finally sent it back to me, so we did have a little conversation about it. It's based on Galatians 6, verses 6 through 10. And here's what triggered it. It was already kind of a thought on my radar. My buddy James and I, we're constantly sending things back and forth. We send memes, we send vids. Some of it's funny, some of it's very serious, some of it's biblical, some of it's Star Wars, some of it's music related. And he had sent me something recently, and it's this thing called Tonight's Conversation. And some of it's really good. And the one he'd sent me recently was by Amanda Jenkins Nelson. And what it generally is internet personalities who do these nightly conversations with audiences where they address questions or comments. And I don't always agree with everything they say, but the one that he sent me, I was like, wow, that'll preach. And then right after he sent it, that picture popped up on my phone as one of those ads during, I do some math games on my phone to try to maintain some mental acuity as I age. And so I put two and two together and began to think about a pig in a bikini. Because we have that old saying that a pig, put a lipstick on a pig and it's still a pig. And so what this lady said was, she's addressing a teen girl in the audience that had asked a question or made a comment. I didn't get the first part of it. And what I'm going to do is give it to you word for word, because I want you to hear it, and then I'm going to make my comments. You said you want to be a wife. And the teen girl standing up in the audience, and it cuts to her, says yes. And so the lady said, do I have other people in the audience who want to be a wife? And so there was a smattering of responses, some applause, and some verbal yeses. So she said, I'm going to have a deep conversation with y'all right now. You have to prepare yourself to be a wife. If you want to get into your Ruth era, you have to get out of your Jezebel era. And at that point, she had my attention. I thought, wow, she's thought about this. She is on to something. And then she said, let me say this real quick. I'm going to be biblically sound for just a minute. If you're not a believer, cover your ears. If you want to get into that space of really being a virtuous woman, the behaviors that you have, even in dealing with somebody, should be leading that person closer to God. But if you are playing with a person and toying with a person's emotions, if you all are not even equally yoked, if y'all aren't even equally yoked, if y'all don't even have the same values or the same desires or the same purpose, leave them alone. Because if you are to prepare yourself for a wife, then you can't be making foolish decisions. That's all Proverbs, baby. You got to get into your word, honey. And again, I was like, wow. I don't know anything about this woman. I've never heard her speak before. But I thought, girl, you're right on. Girl, you are right on. Preach to this little girl. Tell her now while she's young enough for this to begin to sink in. And she kept going. She said, I understand. It's always a fun time to say, hey, let's do this. Let's date. Let's do all this stuff. But listen to her. But every time you are connecting with a different person, and we can insert in there her meaning, every time you're hooking up, every time you're physically connecting with a different person, you are connecting with their demons as well. You don't want to keep on attaching these things onto you. Listen to me, young people. Because when your husband does find you, he has to navigate all of these demons. You've heard me say the same thing. I encourage you to truly start working on yourself, working on your faith, working on your insides. And then she went back to something that she had said the day before. I said just yesterday, the Bible tells us to adorn ourselves. That means on the inside. I'm not talking about the physical and what you have in your clothes and your status, but on the inside of you. Where He will be able to find and see, where will He be able to find and see God in you? Because that is what a man is supposed to be able to find when he finds his wife. Baby, I understand you're young. And I know people always tell you, enjoy your youth. And you absolutely should, but be wise in your youth as well. Wow. Let me start with this. She's talking to a specific young woman who had asked a question, made a comment. She kind of expanded it. She was talking to the women in her audience. I am talking to Christians. Or rather, God is. Sometimes we have, and the elders and I were talking this morning, sometimes we have a tendency, and we have in our culture, to act like there is a double standard. And we address women and young women as if there's a double standard in how virtuous they have to be, and that women are held to one standard of virtue, and then guys are allowed to be players, and that's okay. No. All right. I'm addressing Christians. I'm addressing men and women. young women who want to grow up to be wives and mothers and wives of elders and wives of preachers and Bible class teachers, and who want to be able to, when their children grow up, and ask them about how their teen years were and whether or not they were virgins when they got married and whether or not they were virtuous young teens, and young men who want to grow up to be husbands and fathers and elders and preachers and deacons and want to be able to answer questions that their young teen boys ask them. And so this all goes together. Listen to me, young people. Start working on it now. Start making good decisions now. Start sowing the right seeds in your lives now, not later on. When you obey the gospel, you are a Christian. You are a Christian now. Right now, right at that moment. You are not a Christian 10 years from now. You are not obeying the gospel and putting on Christ, but then sowing the rest of your evil seeds for 10 years and then getting your life right. Some act like you can obey the gospel, but then you still have those early years, your teens and your 20s, and the later we're pushing marriage into our 30s and our shacking up years and our living together and on into our 30s and maybe even our 40s now are years to sow our wild oats and hope and pray that there's no harvest. That's not how it works. We act like in our culture, and it affects the church, that we can live in the muck, in the mire, and keep it hidden or not, and that it's okay. That we can live like this during the week and we can clean it up on Sunday with the mask or the makeup or the virtuous living, and we can still be a pig in a bikini and it's okay. That we can pretty it up and God will accept it and the church will accept it, and we cover it up and we overcome it. But say you get away with it. Let's step away from that for just a second. Say you do get away with it, in a sense. You sow your oats in your teens. You obeyed the gospel when you felt the move to obey the gospel. But it didn't change anything. You kept living the life that you were living. But you got away with it. There was no harvest at the moment. You didn't get pregnant. You didn't get someone pregnant. You didn't get a disease. You didn't get a DUI. You ended up getting clean. You got sober. You were able to repent, and you began living the Christian life at some point. Can a person change? Absolutely. Without a doubt. Rahab did. Don't let people try to convince you that Rahab was an innkeeper. Rahab was a harlot. Rahab was a prostitute who came to be an Israelite. She attached herself to the Israelite nation and became a part of the line of Christ. Samson changed. Samson was a deviant who died faithful. You can change. Paul changed. But the baggage did not disappear. It can be overcome, but it didn't disappear. The baggage that we collect as we're sowing those oats, as a teen, as a 20, as a 30, when we think we're getting away with it, requires a very painful unpacking and sorting and washing. It leaves scars that never go away. We're forgiven for the past sin, but the scars are there. The damage to the body is there. The damage to the psyche is there. The damage to the soul is there. The past relationships that continue to rear their ugly heads, they're there. The emotional shadows that continue to lurk around the corner are there. Samson died blind because of the sin before he got right. Samson died because of the sin before he got right. Paul lived with the guilt of stoning or being a part of the stoning of Stephen for the rest of his life. The baggage stays with us. She contrasts Ruth and Jezebel in her comments. What was Jezebel? She was manipulative, idolatrous. She was a murderer by proxy. She forged letters. She had Naboth killed. The image in Revelation 2 carries all of those images plus sexual promiscuity. Ruth was virtuous and faithful and loyal. We could roll Delilah in that, manipulative, secularly immoral, tricky. Samson dates in the cesspool. He's unfocused. Now, he's the only one of these that starts out as God's, so we focus on him. He does come back around, but he's still blind and it cost him his life. God forgives, but the dents and the dings and the scars and so on go with us. The seed we sow always leads to some kind of harvest. We cannot get away from it. It's going to come back to haunt us in some way. Back to Galatians chapter 6, God cannot be fooled. Whether we sow it as a teen, or we sow it as a 20, or we sow it as a 30, if we sow it to the flesh, it's going to produce some type of fleshly harvest. When I obey the gospel and I keep sowing physical, fleshly seed, there is some measure of corrupt harvest to be reaped. I may repent. I can be forgiven. I can find a virtuous mate. But I may spend the rest of my life battling demons. My mate may spend the rest of her life Your mate may spend the rest of her life or his life battling my demons, unpacking my past. If, however, young people, listen to me, we live clean, virtuous lives now, if we present our bodies as living in holy sacrifices that are acceptable to Him now, if we remember Him in our youth, and that is a rolled together mishmash of Ecclesiastes 12:1 and 1 Timothy 4:12 and 6:11 and Romans 12:1, there's not going to be anything to unpack later. We're not going to have to overcome the garbage later because we have the holiness already there. Which is easier? Unpacking it later or not having to unpack it later? Not having to ask our spouse to unpack it later? Or handing them a suitcase full of garbage and saying, hey, please fight your way through this because this is what I bring to the table. If I bring to a marriage a clean slate, my spouse doesn't have to fight the demons. If I bring to a marriage a gift of virginity to give to my future spouse, if I bring to a marriage a gift of clean health, no addictions, how much easier is it to begin a new life? So 1 Peter 3 and verse 3, where she was telling the young lady, start working on the inside. Start working on the inside now. Young people, listen to me. This you got on the outside can be the baddest there is. You can be a baddie. You can be a dime and a dime plus. You can be the hottie of the century. And if it is covering up Jezebel, you are a pig in a bikini. You are disgusting. On the flip side, though, what is on the inside can be plain. It can be average. What's on the outside can actually be kind of ugly. But if what's on the inside looks so much like God that you're twinning, you're gorgeous. And on the day that counts, that is all that matters. I have no idea what Ruth looked like. But when Boaz saw her, he said, that's the one. That's the one. Which one do you think counts on the last day? Jezebel got tossed out the window. She got eaten by the dogs. Which one will attract the right kind of spouse? What did Jezebel attract? Ahab. Wasn't either one of them worth anything. Which one of those, the baddie on the outside or the baddie on the inside, will make you the right type of spouse? Which one will bring two helpmeets together that will help you get to heaven? That will help you reach eternity of joy and peace in the presence of God. As the lady said in the beginning, Young ladies, if you want to be a wife, a mother, someone that can be respected when you reach your golden years, a wife that your husband can be proud of and that your children can be proud of, don't ever enter your Jezebel era. If you're in it now, get out of it and enter your Ruth era. Young men, get out of your Samson era and get into your Boaz era. And start working on the inside. I'm not saying don't go to the gym. I'm not saying don't fix your hair. But if you spend more time in the book than you spend in the gym, and you look more like God than you do Adonis or a Kardashian or whoever the goal is today, you will find the right mate as we stand and sing.